Amelia Grace Hartley's fingers traced the edge of the mahogany credenza for the third time that morning, ensuring perfect alignment of the crystal vessels that adorned it. The late autumn sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Blackthorn mansion, casting long shadows across the immaculate hardwood floors she'd polished just hours earlier. "You're doing it again, dear." Margaret Blackthorn's voice, gentle but knowing, startled her from her ritual. The family matriarch stood in the doorway of the grand sitting room, her silver hair swept into an elegant chignon, her posture as perfect as ever despite the visible weight of worry in her eyes. Amelia withdrew her hand, catching herself mid-bite on the inside of her cheek, another nervous habit she couldn't seem to break. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Blackthorn. I just wanted to make sure everything was perfect?" Margaret's knowing smile held a trace of affection. "It always is with you, Amelia. That's precisely why I need to discuss something important with you. Please sit." The formal invitation sent a flutter of anxiety through Amelia's stomach. In her 2 years as the Blackthorn family's housekeeper, she'd learned to read the subtle shifts in Margaret's tone. This wasn't their usual morning meeting about household matters. Smoothing her black midi dress, Amelia perched on the edge of the cream-colored settee, her back straight, hands folded in her lap. The starched white apron crinkled softly with her movement. Margaret settled into her favorite armchair, her fingers absently adjusting the delicate pearl pendant at her throat. "I received some troubling news this morning. It's about Oliver." Amelia's breath caught. Oliver James Blackthorn, Margaret's only son and the family's heir, was a figure she knew only through photographs and the occasional overheard conversation. His commanding presence in the family portraits that lined the halls had always intimidated her, those piercing green eyes seeming to look right through anyone who dared meet his gaze. "There's been an accident," Margaret continued, her voice steady but strained. "A car crash. He's alive, thank God, but—" She paused, composing herself. "The injuries are significant. He'll need extensive rehabilitation, and more importantly, someone I trust to oversee his care." Understanding dawned slowly, sending a chill down Amelia's spine. "Mrs. Blackthorn, surely you don't mean—" "I want you to go to him, Amelia. To his house in Newport. He needs someone capable, someone discreet, someone who won't coddle him but won't let him push them away either." Margaret leaned forward, her gray eyes intense. "I'm prepared to double your current salary." Amelia's mind raced. Care for Oliver Blackthorn? The man whose reputation for cold arrogance preceded him at every charity gala and board meeting? The same Oliver who'd reportedly reduced his father's most seasoned business partner to tears during a negotiation. "I'm not a nurse," she protested softly, her fingers finding the hem of her apron. "No, you're better. You're someone who sees people, Amelia. Really sees them." Margaret's voice softened. "In these 2 years, you've brought life back into this house. You've managed every crisis with grace, handled every delicate situation with discretion. Oliver needs that now, even if he doesn't know it." Amelia stood, needing to move, to think. Her heels clicked against the hardwood as she paced. "He won't want me there. From what I understand, he values his privacy above all else." "He won't want anyone there," Margaret acknowledged. "But he needs someone. The doctors say his recovery could take months and he's already threatened to fire 3 nurses. She paused, watching Amelia carefully. "I'm not asking you to be his nurse, I'm asking you to be his lifeline." The weight of the request settled heavy on Amelia's shoulders. She stopped at the window, gazing out at the manicured gardens below. Her reflection stared back at her, blue-gray eyes uncertain, light brown hair pulled back in its usual neat bun, a few stubborn strands framing her face. "What exactly would you expect of me?" she asked finally, turning back to face her employer. "Oversee his care, manage the household, make sure he doesn't give up." Margaret's lips curved in a sad smile. "He's strong, but this injury, it's broken something in him. I can hear it in his voice. He needs someone who won't break with him." Amelia's heart thumped painfully. She recognized the fear in Margaret's eyes, the terror of a mother watching her child suffer. Over the past 2 years, Margaret had become more than just her employer. She'd been a mentor, almost a mother figure herself. "When would you need me to start?" "Tomorrow, if possible. I've already had the guest house prepared. For you." Margaret stood, crossing to take Amelia's hands in hers. "I know I'm asking a lot, but there's no one I trust more." Amelia looked down at their joined hands, Margaret's adorned with family rings, her own bare and slightly calloused from work. This job had been her sanctuary after escaping her last position, a dark chapter she'd worked hard to leave behind. Now she was being asked to step into another potentially volatile situation. But this was different. This was Margaret asking, not ordering. This was an act of trust, not control. "I'll need today to pack and arrange things here," Amelia said finally, squeezing Margaret's hands gently before letting go. Relief flooded Margaret's features. "Thank you, dear. I'll have Bradford drive you to Newport first thing tomorrow morning." She moved toward the door, then paused. "And Amelia, don't let him fool you with that cold exterior. My son's heart is his best-kept secret." After Margaret left, Amelia remained in the sitting room, her fingers returning to trace the edge of the credenza. The crystal vessels caught the light, throwing rainbow patterns across the wall. Everything in its place, perfectly aligned, perfectly controlled. Unlike the chaos that awaited her in Newport, she caught her reflection again in the window. The same uncertain eyes, the same careful posture, but something else too, a determination she recognized from darker days. She'd rebuilt herself once. Perhaps she could help someone else do the same. Tomorrow she would face Oliver Blackthorne. Tomorrow she would step into his world of pain and pride and isolation. Tomorrow she would begin the most challenging job of her life. But today she had a house to organize. And in the methodical task of preparation she found her courage. The Newport mansion loomed before Amelia like a sleeping giant, its gray stone facade stern against the morning mist rolling in from the Atlantic. Bradford, the Blackthorne family's driver, pulled the Mercedes to a stop in the circular driveway, the gravel crunching softly beneath the tires. "Miss Hartley," he said, meeting her eyes in the rearview mirror, "would you like me to wait?" The gentle offer made her smile. Even Bradford, who'd known Oliver since childhood, seemed uncertain about this arrangement. "No, thank you, I'll be fine." But as she stepped out of the car, her sensible black heels sinking slightly into the wet gravel, fine felt like an optimistic assessment. The house stretched 3 stories high, its windows like vacant eyes staring down at her. The garden, unlike the meticulously maintained grounds of Margaret's estate, showed signs of recent neglect. Amelia straightened her spine, adjusted the strap of her leather bag, and walked to the front door. Her knock echoed in the morning stillness. No answer. She tried again, louder this time. "If you're another physical therapist, you can turn around and leave." The voice that crackled through the intercom was deep, razor-edged with irritation. "I don't need any more medical professionals pretending they can fix me." Amelia pressed the intercom button, keeping her voice steady. "I'm Amelia Hartley, Mr. Blackthorne. Your mother sent me." A long pause followed. Then, "Of course she did." The bitterness in his tone was palpable. The lock clicked, and the heavy door swung open automatically. The foyer was dimly lit, the grand chandelier above turned off despite the gloomy day. Amelia's footsteps echoed on the marble floor as she entered, her trained eye taking in the details. Dust on the side tables, wilting flowers in a crystal vase, mail piled unopened on a silver tray. Second floor, east wing. The disembodied voice directed through hidden speakers. "Try not to gasp when you see me." The last one did, and it was tedious. Amelia climbed the curved staircase, her hand sliding along the polished banister. The upper hall was brighter, sunlight filtering through tall windows. She followed it east, past closed doors and artwork shrouded in sheets, until she reached a partly open door. She knocked softly. "Enter." The word was clipped, imperial. Oliver Blackthorne sat in a wheelchair by the window, his back to her, silhouetted against the morning light. Even seated, his presence dominated the room. His dark hair was slightly longer than in the photographs she'd seen, brushing the collar of his charcoal cashmere sweater. "Let me guess," he said, not turning. "My mother promised you an obscene amount of money to come help me, to be my salvation in sensible shoes and starched uniform." "Actually," Amelia replied, keeping her voice neutral, "she asked me to make sure you don't fire any more nurses. The employment agencies are starting to talk." He turned then, and Amelia forced herself not to react. The photographs hadn't done him justice. Even with the healing scar along his jawline, Oliver Blackthorne was striking. His green eyes were sharp with intelligence and something darker, pain, anger, or both. His features were aristocratic, but tension had carved lines around his mouth. "And you are uniquely qualified for this task because—" His gaze raked over her, dismissive. "Because I'm not a nurse, Mr. Blackthorne. I'm a housekeeper, one who's quite accustomed to managing difficult situations." A bark of laughter escaped him, harsh and humorless. "A housekeeper? My mother sent me a housekeeper?" His hands gripped the wheelchair's arms. "Tell me, Miss Hartley, are you going to dust me back to health?" "No," she said calmly, moving to open the heavy drapes fully. "But I am going to restore some order to this house, starting with letting in some light." He squinted against the brightness. "I preferred it dark." "I'm sure you did." Amelia turned to face him fully. "Your mother hired me to manage this household, Mr. Blackthorne. That includes overseeing your care, ensuring you attend your therapy appointments, and maintaining an environment conducive to recovery. And if I refuse your services?" His voice was soft, dangerous. "Then you can explain to your mother why you're sabotaging your own recovery." She met his gaze steadily. "I imagine she's heard every excuse you can devise." Something flickered in his eyes, surprise perhaps. He wasn't used to people standing their ground. "You're either very brave or very foolish, Miss Hartley." "Neither, Mr. Blackthorne. I'm simply doing my job." She moved to the dresser, noting the untouched medication bottles. "Have you taken your morning dose?" His jaw tightened. "I don't need a babysitter." "No, you need someone who won't let you wallow in self-pity." The words slipped out before she could stop them. She held her breath, waiting for the explosion. Instead, he laughed again, and this time there was a hint of genuine amusement. "Well, well, the kitten has claws." He wheeled himself to the dresser, reaching for the pills with a slightly trembling hand. "Fine, Miss Hartley. You want to wage this war? Let's wage it, but don't say you weren't warned." "I never start a war I don't intend to win, Mr. Blackthorne." She handed him a glass of water, careful not to let their fingers touch. "Now, shall we discuss your schedule for the day?" He swallowed the pills, his throat working. "By all means, tell me how you plan to organize my descent into helplessness." "Actually, I thought we'd start with breakfast, unless you prefer to continue this dramatic monologue on an empty stomach." His eyes narrowed, but she caught the ghost of a smile playing at the corner of his mouth. "You're going to be a problem, aren't you, Miss Hartley?" "Only if you insist on being one first, Mr. Blackthorne." She moved to the door. "I'll expect you downstairs in 20 minutes. We can discuss your rehabilitation schedule over eggs and coffee." As she left the room, she heard him mutter, "Definitely brave and foolish." In the hall, Amelia allowed herself a moment to lean against the wall, her heart racing. Oliver Blackthorne was exactly as formidable as his reputation suggested. Brilliant, bitter, and wounded in ways that went far deeper than physical injury. But she'd seen something else too, in that brief flash of humor. A man desperate to maintain control when his world was spinning apart. She understood that feeling all too well. Straightening, she headed downstairs to investigate the kitchen. There would be time later to unpack her own belongings in the guest house, to question the wisdom of this arrangement. For now, she had a breakfast to prepare and a battle to win, and Amelia Grace Hartley had never been one to retreat from a challenge. 3 days into her new position, Amelia discovered that managing Oliver Blackthorne was like trying to tame a wounded lion. Every gesture of help was met with a snarl, every attempt at care interpreted as an attack on his dignity. The kitchen had become her sanctuary, the one place he rarely ventured. This morning she stood at the marble counter methodically chopping vegetables for soup while reviewing his morning therapy reports. The news wasn't good. He refused to complete the session again, Ricardo, the physical therapist, had written. Patient exhibits resistance to basic exercises and demonstrates increasing hostility toward recovery protocols. The knife hit the cutting board with more force than necessary. Yes, Oliver was being difficult, impossible even, but she'd seen the way he gripped the parallel bars yesterday, knuckles white, sweat beading on his forehead. She'd noticed how his hands shook at dinner, though he tried to hide it behind, cutting remarks about her choice of table settings. Something wrong with the vegetables, Miss Hartley? His voice startled her. She turned to find him in the kitchen doorway, wheelchair positioned with calculated casualness. How long had he been watching her? The carrots are being particularly stubborn today, she replied, wiping her hands on her apron. Much like someone else I know. His mouth twitched. Comparing me to root vegetables now? Your metaphors need work. Would you prefer I compare? You to the onions? They're making me cry. A genuine laugh escaped him, surprising them both. He quickly covered it with a scowl, but not before Amelia caught a glimpse of how he must have looked before. Younger, lighter, unguarded. I came to inform you that I won't be needing lunch today, he said, his formal tone returning. I have a video conference with the board. Amelia set down her knife. The board meeting isn't until 3. That's plenty of time for you to eat. I need to prepare. You need to maintain your strength. She met his challenging stare. The medication makes you nauseated when you take it on an empty stomach. Or did you think I hadn't noticed? His fingers tightened on the wheelchair's arms. Has anyone ever told you you're insufferably observant? Frequently, usually right before they admit I'm right. She turned back to her chopping. The soup will be ready at noon. You can have it in your study if you prefer. The silence stretched between them, filled only by the rhythmic sound of knife against cutting board. Finally he spoke, his voice quieter. Why are you doing this? Doing what? Making soup? No. She heard him wheel closer. This, all of it, the constant pushing, the caring. Is it just the money? Amelia's hand stilled. She turned to face him, really looking at him for the first time that day. The shadows under his eyes were darker, his jaw tight with unspoken pain. He hadn't slept well. She'd heard him moving around his room in the early hours. Would it be easier for you if it was just about the money? His green eyes searched her face. Yes. Then I apologize for making this complicated. She stepped closer to his chair, close enough to see the faint scar on his jaw in detail. But I don't do anything just for money, Mr. Blackthorne. I do it because it needs to be done. And I need to be fixed? Is that it? There was an edge to his voice now. Poor broken Oliver Blackthorne, trapped in this chair, needs a savior in an apron. No. The word came out sharper than she intended. You don't need fixing. You need someone who sees you're still whole, even if you don't believe it yourself. The words hung in the air between them. Oliver's face went through a series of micro-expressions, shock, anger, something else she couldn't quite read. When he spoke again, his voice was rough. You don't know me, Miss Hartley. You don't know what I was before. I know what you are now, she said softly. A man too stubborn to give up even when he claims he wants to. He wheeled back slightly, creating distance. Your soup will get cold if you keep philosophizing. The deflection was obvious. But Amelia allowed it. Noon, Mr. Blackthorne, don't make me come looking for you. He turned his chair toward the door, then paused. The carrots. What about them? You're cutting them too thick. They won't cook evenly. Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving only the faint scent of his expensive cologne in his wake. Amelia looked down at her cutting board. He was right. The carrots were uneven. With a small smile, she began chopping them again, more carefully this time. It was the first time he'd offered any comment about food. The first time he'd shown interest in anything beyond his own misery. A small victory, perhaps, but she'd take it. The morning passed in a blur of household tasks. Amelia supervised the cleaning staff she'd hired, all thoroughly vetted and sworn to discretion, organized Oliver's medication schedule, and fielded 3 calls from Margaret checking on her son's progress. At exactly noon, she carried a tray to his study. The door was ajar, and she could hear his voice, deep, authoritative, completely different from the bitter tones he used with her. "The Shanghai merger proceeds as planned," he was saying to someone on his laptop. "My temporary situation doesn't affect my ability to make decisions." Amelia knocked softly, entering when he waved her in. She set the tray on his desk, carefully avoiding the scattered papers and tablets. Oliver barely glanced at her, focused on his screen. "We'll discuss the numbers tomorrow," he continued. "I want a full report on projected earnings by—" "What is that smell?" The question was directed at her. "Roasted carrot and ginger soup," she replied. "With fresh thyme from the garden." His colleague on the screen chuckled. "Sounds better than my lunch meeting. We'll talk tomorrow, Oliver. Get some rest." The call ended before Oliver could object. He stared at the soup, then at Amelia. "You actually fixed the carrots." "I take constructive criticism seriously." She removed the bowl's cover, even when it's delivered sarcastically. Something shifted in his expression, surprise perhaps, or respect. He picked up the spoon, his hand trembling slightly. Amelia pretended not to notice, busying herself with arranging his papers into neater piles. "Miss Hartley?" She turned. "Yes?" "Thank you." The words seemed to cost him something. "For bringing this up here." "You're welcome." She headed for the door, then paused. "The board meeting isn't for 3 hours. Try to rest after you eat. You look tired." His spoon clinked against the bowl. "Now you're going to monitor my sleep habits?" "Someone has to." She smiled slightly. "The carrots told me to do it." This time his laugh followed her into the hallway, and she couldn't help but notice how it transformed his voice, making him sound younger, more alive. Another small victory. In her experience, it was the small victories that eventually won wars, and this was definitely a war. Not against Oliver, but against the darkness threatening to consume him. Good thing she wasn't afraid of the dark. The storm hit Newport without warning, bringing with it the kind of darkness that made Amelia's skin prickle. Lightning illuminated the mansion's corridors in harsh bursts, thunder rattling the windows. But it wasn't the weather that had woken her at 3 a.m. It was the crash from the main house. She pulled on her robe over her nightgown and hurried from the guest house through the covered walkway, rain drumming overhead. The security code beeped as she entered through the kitchen door, her heart pounding. "Mr. Blackthorne?" Her voice echoed in the darkness. The power was out. Another crash followed by what sounded like a curse came from upstairs. Amelia found her phone, using its light to navigate the stairs. The shadows danced eerily across the walls. She found him in the hallway outside his bedroom, the wheelchair overturned beside him. Oliver was on the floor, one hand braced against the wall, his face a mask of fury and pain. "Don't." The word was a growl when she moved to help him. "Just don't." Lightning flashed, illuminating the scene in stark detail. He was in sleep pants and a t-shirt, his dark hair disheveled, his feet bare. The distance between his room and the bathroom wasn't far, but in the dark. "You should have called me," she said quietly, keeping her distance but not leaving. "I don't need to call anyone for permission to use my own damn bathroom." His breathing was ragged. "I don't need help to perform basic human functions in my own house." Thunder cracked overhead, making them both jump. In that moment of shared startlement, their eyes met. The raw vulnerability in his gaze struck her harder than the lightning. "No," she agreed softly. "You don't need permission, but you do need light." She moved to the wall, finding the emergency lantern she'd installed last week. Warm light filled the hallway. Oliver's jaw clenched. She could see now that he was shaking. Whether from effort or emotion, she couldn't tell. Probably both. I can leave, she offered. Or I can help. Your choice, Mr. Blackthorne. He closed his eyes, and she watched the battle play out across his features. Pride warred with necessity, stubbornness with practicality. Finally he spoke, each word seeming to cost him. I can't get up. Amelia moved slowly, telegraphing her movements. I'm going to help you back into the chair. Ready? A sharp nod was his only response. She knelt beside him, trying to ignore how the silk of her robe brushed against his arm, how his breath caught when she slipped her hands under his shoulders. On 3, she murmured. 1, 2. On 3, they moved together. He was heavy, all muscle despite his recent inactivity, but they managed. When he was settled in the righted wheelchair, both of them were breathing hard. The bathroom? She asked, keeping her tone neutral. No. His voice was rough. I need a minute. Amelia nodded, stepping back to give him space. The storm raged outside, but in the lantern's glow, the hallway felt somehow intimate, removed from the rest of the world. You must think I'm pathetic. The words were barely audible. No. She moved to stand in front of him. I think you're human. His laugh was bitter. Human. I used to run marathons, Miss Hartley. I climbed mountains. Now I can't even make it to my own bathroom without falling. Yet? His eyes snapped to hers. What? You can't make it to the bathroom yet. She held his gaze. This isn't your ending, Mr. Blackthorne. It's just a chapter. A rather poorly written one. But some of the bitterness had faded from his voice. Then rewrite it. She gestured to his legs. You have the strength. I've seen it in therapy. You're just what? There was a dangerous edge to his question. Afraid. The word hung between them. Oliver's hands gripped his armrest so hard his knuckles went white. You think you know me so well? I think I know fear. Amelia's voice softened. I think I know what it's like to have your world shattered, to feel like you'll never be whole again. Something shifted in his expression. You speak from experience. It wasn't a question, but she answered anyway. Yes, lightning flashed again, and in that brief, brilliant moment their eyes met. There was a recognition there, a shared understanding of wounds that went deeper than skin. Tell me, he said quietly. Amelia's heart thundered louder than the storm. Not tonight. She moved behind his chair. Tonight we're getting you to the bathroom and then you're going to rest. To her surprise, he didn't argue. She wheeled him down the hall, the lantern's light creating a small bubble of warmth around them. At the bathroom door, she paused. I'll be right outside if you need me. His hand caught her wrist as she turned to go. His touch was warm, unexpectedly gentle. Amelia. It was the first time he'd used her first name. The sound of it in his deep voice made her shiver. Thank you. He released her, clearing his throat. For being here. Always, she replied, the word slipping out before she could stop it. In the lantern light, she thought she saw him smile, a real smile, small but genuine. Then the bathroom door closed between them, and she leaned against the wall, trying to steady her breathing. The storm continued its assault outside, but something had shifted inside the house. A wall had cracked, letting in a glimmer of light. She'd seen behind Oliver's mask of anger to the fear beneath, and he'd sensed her own hidden wounds. It should have made her feel vulnerable. Instead, she felt strangely strong. When the power finally returned an hour later, she'd gotten him back to bed and was heading to the guest house. His voice stopped her at his bedroom door. Miss Hartley? She turned. Yes? Tomorrow. Maybe we could try those standing exercises, Ricardo mentioned. Her heart leaped, but she kept her voice calm. Of course, after breakfast. Your carrots better be cut properly this time. She smiled into the darkness. Good night, Mr. Blackthorne. As she walked back to the guest house, The rain had softened to a gentle patter. The storm was passing, as storms always did, and in its wake, something new was growing, fragile as a seedling but undeniably alive. Hope. Focus on my voice. Amelia stood at the end of the parallel bars, her heart racing nearly as fast as Oliver's labored breathing. You're almost there. Sweat darkened his gray t-shirt, his arms trembling as they bore his weight. 2 weeks had passed since the night of the storm, and every day since then, he'd pushed himself harder in therapy. Today, he'd insisted on trying to walk the full length of the bars. I can't. His legs buckled slightly, but he caught himself. Yes, you can. She kept her voice steady, though her fingers gripped her skirt behind her back. 3 more steps, look at me, not your feet. His green eyes locked onto hers, dark with determination, and something else that made her breath catch. Slowly, deliberately, he moved forward, 1 step, another, his jaw clenched with effort. Last step, she whispered. Oliver released the bars, stumbling slightly. Amelia moved without thinking, catching him. His hands gripped her shoulders, and suddenly they were standing chest to chest, his breathing ragged against her hair. I've got you, she murmured. Yes, he said softly. You do. The moment stretched, charged with unspoken words. Amelia became acutely aware of his warmth, the solid strength of him even after weeks of limited mobility. His hands were calloused against her bare shoulders, and she could feel his heart pounding through his shirt. Ricardo cleared his throat from the doorway. Excellent progress, Mr. Blackthorne. They separated quickly, Amelia stepping back as Oliver lowered himself into the wheelchair beside the bars. His face was flushed, though whether from exertion or something else she couldn't tell. Same time tomorrow? Ricardo asked, making notes on his tablet. Make it earlier, Oliver replied, running a hand through his damp hair. I have meetings in the afternoon. After Ricardo left, Amelia began wiping down the equipment, a task she'd taken on despite the cleaning staff. She needed the mechanical motion to calm her racing pulse. You don't have to do that. She turned to find Oliver watching her, his expression unreadable. I know. Just like you don't have to stand there encouraging me like a personal cheerleader. Would you prefer I left? No. The word came quickly, surprising them both. He wheeled closer. I mean, your presence is helpful. Amelia's hands stilled on the bars. High praise indeed, Mr. Blackthorne. Oliver. She looked up. What? My name is Oliver. His voice was low, intimate. You've seen me fall, quite literally. I think we're past surnames. The shift made her stomach flutter. Oliver, she tested the name, watching his pupils dilate slightly. Does this mean I'm promoted from insufferable housekeeper to tolerable physical therapy assistant? His laugh was rich, genuine. Don't push your luck, Amelia. The sound of her name in his voice sent warmth spreading through her chest. Dangerous warmth. She stepped back, creating safe distance. You should rest before your shower. She gathered her cleaning supplies. I'll bring lunch to your study at 1. Join me. The invitation stopped her at the door. She turned slowly. I'm sorry? Have lunch with me. He ran his fingers over his wrist, a nervous tell she'd begun to recognize. Unless you have other duties that are more pressing than watching me attempt to eat soup without spilling it. She should say no. Maintaining professional distance was crucial, but the hope in his eyes undid her. All right. His smile transformed his entire face, erasing the ever-present tension around his eyes. Excellent. And Amelia? Yes? Make sure the carrots are cut properly. She laughed, shaking her head as she left the room. But in the hallway, she pressed a hand to her racing heart. This was dangerous territory. The walls between them were crumbling faster than she could rebuild them. In the kitchen, she found herself taking extra care with lunch preparation. The vegetables were cut with precise uniformity, the herb-crusted chicken plated with an artistry. That would have impressed even Margaret's exacting standards. Her phone buzzed with a text from Oliver's mother. How is he progressing? Amelia stared at the screen, unsure how to describe the changes she'd witnessed. How could she explain the way Oliver's smile came more freely now? The determination that had replaced his bitter resignation, the moments when their eyes met and the world seemed to hold its breath. She settled for significant improvement, working hard in therapy. And how are you, dear? Margaret's reply was immediate. A more complicated question. Amelia set the phone down without answering. At precisely 1 o'clock, she carried 2 plates to Oliver's study. He was at his desk, hair still damp from his shower, focused intently on his laptop screen. The Beijing office can handle the preliminary negotiations, he was saying. But I want to be involved in the final stages. Yes, in person. 3 weeks should be enough time to... He broke off as she set the plates down. The person on the screen, an older man with steel gray hair, raised his eyebrows. 3 weeks might be optimistic, Oliver. I'll be ready. His tone left no room for argument. We'll discuss the details tomorrow. After ending the call, he turned to Amelia. You didn't hear that? Hear what? She arranged the plates and cutlery. I was too busy ensuring your carrots met your exacting standards. But inside her mind was racing. Beijing? In 3 weeks? He could barely walk the length of the parallel bars. You disapprove. He watched her face with uncomfortable perception. It's not my place to approve or disapprove of your business decisions. Since when has that stopped you from having an opinion? He gestured to the chair across from his desk. Sit. Tell me what you're thinking. Amelia sat, smoothing her skirt. I think you're pushing yourself too hard. Not hard enough according to my progress. There's a difference between determination and recklessness. His eyes narrowed. You think I'm being reckless? I think you're being Oliver Blackthorne. She met his gaze steadily. Trying to prove something instead of just letting yourself heal. He was quiet for a long moment, absently running his thumb over his wrist. Finally, he spoke softly. What if I'm trying to prove it to myself? The vulnerability in his voice made her throat tight. Then prove it by walking the length of those bars tomorrow, by getting stronger each day, not by rushing across the world before you're ready. And when will I be ready, Amelia? There was an edge of frustration in his tone. When will it be enough? When you can walk into that Beijing office under your own power. She reached across the desk, covering his restless hand with hers. When you're doing it because you can, not because you feel you have to. His fingers curled around hers, warm and strong. You make it sound so simple. Nothing about this is simple. She squeezed his hand gently before withdrawing. Now eat. Your perfectly cut carrots before they get cold. He smiled, that real smile that transformed his face. Yes, ma'am. They ate in comfortable silence, broken only by occasional comments about the food or household matters. But Amelia felt the weight of unspoken words between them, saw the way his eyes followed her movements. When she stood to clear the plates, he caught her wrist. Thank you. For lunch? For seeing me. His thumb brushed over her pulse point. Not the CEO, not the invalid. Just me. Amelia's heart thundered in her chest. You make it hard to see anything else. Their eyes held for a long moment before she gently pulled away. At the door, she paused. 3 more weeks of therapy, then we'll talk about Beijing. His soft laughter followed her down the hall, warming her more than any sunshine could. But, as she returned to the kitchen, her hand still tingling from his touch, Amelia wondered who was really in danger of falling, him or her. Perhaps they both were. Autumn had painted Newport in shades of gold and crimson when the Mercedes pulled into the circular driveway. Amelia, arranging fresh flowers in the foyer, froze at the sound of high heels clicking on marble steps. Hello? Ollie, anyone home? The voice was honey-sweet, cultured, and entirely unfamiliar. Amelia turned to find a stunning woman standing in the doorway. Designer sunglasses perched on perfectly styled platinum blonde hair. Everything about her screamed wealth and privilege, from her Louboutin heels to her Hermes bag. "I'm sorry, but Mr. Blackthorne isn't accepting unscheduled visitors," Amelia said, keeping her tone professional despite the unease crawling up her spine. The woman laughed, the sound like tinkling crystal. "Oh, sweetie, I'm hardly an unscheduled visitor." She removed her sunglasses, revealing sharp blue eyes. "I'm Victoria Sinclair, Oliver's fiancée." The flowers nearly slipped from Amelia's hands. Fiancé? In 6 weeks, Oliver had never mentioned. "Ex-fiancé," came Oliver's voice from the top of the stairs. He stood there, gripping the handrail, his face a mask of controlled fury. "What are you doing here, Victoria?" Victoria's perfectly painted lips curved into a smile. "Darling, when I heard about the accident, I've been so worried." She started up the stairs, but Amelia stepped between them. "Mr. Blackthorne is still recovering. Any emotional stress could—" "It's all right, Amelia." Oliver's voice was tight. "Victoria was just leaving." "Actually," Victoria purred, "I've already spoken with Margaret. She thinks it would be wonderful if I helped with your recovery. After all, who better than the woman who knows you best?" Amelia felt the impact of those words like a physical blow. She busied herself with the flowers, trying to ignore how Victoria brushed past her, ascending the stairs with practiced grace. "Mother has no say in this," Oliver growled, but Amelia could hear the uncertainty in his voice. Margaret's influence over the household was absolute, and they all knew it. "Don't be difficult, darling." Victoria reached the top of the stairs, her hand coming to rest on Oliver's arm. "I know we ended things abruptly, but seeing you hurt like this, I realized what really matters." Amelia couldn't bear to watch anymore. She retreated to the kitchen, her sanctuary, where she gripped the edge of the marble counter until her knuckles went white. Stupid. She'd been so stupid to let herself feel anything. Of course there would be someone like Victoria, beautiful, sophisticated, from his world. Someone who wouldn't need coaching on which fork to use at formal dinners. "Amelia." She straightened quickly, turning to find Oliver in the doorway. He'd made it downstairs on his own, one hand braced against the wall for support. The progress would have thrilled her any other time. "You should be using your cane," she said automatically. "Forget the cane." He moved closer, his steps cautious but determined. "About Victoria. You don't owe me any explanations, Mr. Blackthorne." The formality felt like armor. "Back to Mr. Blackthorne, are we?" His voice was soft, dangerous. "After everything?" "Everything?" She met his eyes, hating the tremor in her voice. "What exactly is everything, Oliver? A few weeks of physical therapy? Some shared meals? Conversations that meant—" She caught herself. "It doesn't matter. Your fiancé, ex-fiancé, is here now, and your mother approves. I'm sure she'll be an excellent nurse." "I don't want a nurse." He was closer now, close enough that she could smell his cologne. "And I don't want Victoria." Hope fluttered traitorously in her chest. "What do you want?" Before he could answer, Victoria's voice rang out from the foyer. "Ollie, where did you go, darling? You shouldn't be wandering around alone." Oliver's jaw clenched. "I need to handle this." "Of course." Amelia stepped back, rebuilding her walls brick by brick. "Shall I bring lunch to your study at the usual time?" "Actually," Victoria appeared in the doorway, "I've arranged for lunch to be delivered from La Maison. You remember Ollie? Where we had our first date?" The flash of pain across Oliver's face was brief but unmistakable. La Maison. Of course Victoria would know his memories, his history. What did Amelia know? Only how he liked his coffee, how his hands shook when he was tired, how his eyes crinkled at the corners when he truly smiled. "I'll be in the guest house if you need anything." Amelia moved toward the door, her composure threatening to crack. "Professional anything?" she added quietly. In the guest house, she sank onto her bed, finally letting the tears fall. Foolish, foolish heart. She'd known better than to let herself care. Hadn't her last position taught her that lesson? Her phone buzzed. A text from Margaret. Victoria's return is an unexpected development. How are you handling it, dear? Unexpected? Something in Margaret's tone felt off. Amelia wiped her eyes, thinking hard. Margaret Blackthorne didn't do anything without calculation. But why orchestrate Victoria's return when she'd been the one to? A knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. She opened it to find Oliver, leaning heavily on his cane, breathing hard from the effort of walking to the guest house. You shouldn't be out here, she said. It's starting to rain. I couldn't eat that pretentious French food. His attempt at a smile was weak. The carrots weren't cut properly. Despite everything, she felt her lips twitch. Oliver. She left me. The words rushed out. 3 days after the accident. Said she couldn't handle seeing me. Diminished. Couldn't bear to watch me struggle. His knuckles were white on the cane handle. She sent a text, Amelia. A text ending our engagement while I was still in the hospital. Amelia's heart cracked. Oliver, I'm so sorry. Don't be. It was a wake-up call. Everything about us was superficial. The perfect power couple, all image and no substance. He swayed slightly, and she moved to steady him. You should sit down. Not until you understand. His free hand caught hers. These past weeks with you've seen me at my worst. Broken, angry, helpless, and you never flinched, never looked at me with pity. You just saw me. Thunder rumbled overhead. We should get you back inside. Do you know when I started fighting to get better? He pressed on, his voice intense. Not when the doctors said I might not walk again. Not when Victoria left. It was the day you told me I was still whole. Amelia's breath caught. Oliver, please. I don't want Victoria. I don't want anyone who only loved the man I was before. His fingers tightened on hers. I want Oliver James Blackthorne. Victoria's voice cut through the rain. She stood on the main house's porch, wrapped in a cashmere shawl. What are you doing out in this weather? You'll catch your death. The moment shattered. Oliver's hand fell from Amelia's, and she stepped back into the guest house doorway. Go, she said softly, before you get sick. This isn't over. His eyes held hers, fierce with determination. Whatever game my mother's playing by bringing her back, I won't let it work. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He straightened, gripping his cane. Because for the first time since the accident, I know exactly what I want. And it's not in my past. He turned and walked back toward the house, each step careful but purposeful. Victoria hurried to meet him, fussing over his damp clothes, but Amelia saw how he shifted away from her touch. Closing her door, she pressed, her forehead against the cool wood. Oliver's words echoed in her mind, warming her despite the autumn chill. But Victoria's presence was a stark reminder of the world he came from, a world of old money and older expectations. A world where housekeepers didn't fall in love with CEOs. Love. The realization hit her like lightning. When had simple care turned into something so dangerous? And more importantly, what was she going to do about it? Thunder crashed again and Amelia jumped. Then, squaring her shoulders, she went to change into a fresh uniform. She had work to do, feelings to suppress, and carrots to cut. Let Victoria bring her fancy French food. Amelia knew what Oliver really needed. Not a reminder of who he was, but acceptance of who he'd become. She just hoped her heart survived proving it. You're distracted today. Ricardo's observation cut through Amelia's thoughts as she watched. Oliver worked through his exercises. 2 days had passed since Victoria's arrival, and the mansion's atmosphere had grown increasingly tense. I'm fine, she replied automatically, though her eyes never left Oliver. He was at the parallel bars again, this time without help, his movement stronger than even a week ago. Victoria stood nearby, recording everything on her phone, for Margaret. Though Amelia suspected the footage was more about showcasing her supportive presence. You should see how strong he's getting, Victoria cooed, her camera focused on Oliver's determined face. Everyone at the club will be so impressed with your progress, darling. Oliver's jaw tightened. Turn it off, Victoria. But your mother wanted... I said turn it off. His hands gripped the bars hard enough to whiten his knuckles. Amelia moved forward instinctively, but Victoria was faster. Ollie, don't be difficult. I'm only trying to help. Help? He laughed bitterly. Like you helped when you couldn't bear to look at me in the hospital? When you ended our engagement by text? Victoria's perfect composure cracked slightly. I've apologized for that. I was scared, confused, seeing you like that. Like what? His voice was dangerous now. Broken? Less than perfect? That's not what I... Get out. The words were quiet, but forceful. Victoria blinked. What? Get out. Oliver's eyes blazed. I don't want your help. I don't want your pity, and I don't want your cameras documenting my inspiring recovery story for your social media followers. You're being unreasonable. Victoria's voice shook. Margaret invited me. My mother doesn't control my life anymore. He turned to Ricardo. We're done for today. The physical therapist nodded, gathering his equipment quickly. Victoria remained frozen, her phone still raised. Ollie, please. Amelia. Oliver's voice softened as he said her name. Would you help me to my study? Victoria's eyes narrowed at the change in his tone. Amelia felt the other woman's gaze burning into her as she moved to Oliver's side, supporting him as he transferred to the wheelchair. This is ridiculous, Victoria snapped once Ricardo had left. You're letting your pride... No, Victoria. For once I'm letting myself feel something real. Oliver's hand found Amelia's on the wheelchair handle. Something that isn't about appearance, or social standing, or what people might think. The intimacy of the gesture wasn't lost on Victoria, her perfect features twisted with understanding and fury. Her? The housekeeper? Oh, Ollie, you can't be serious. Don't. His voice was like ice. Don't you dare look down on her. She's done more for me in 2 months than you did in 2 years. Because it's her job. Victoria's composure shattered completely. She's paid to care about you. The words hit Amelia like physical blows, but she kept her face neutral. This wasn't her fight. Get your things, Oliver said quietly. I want you gone by dinner. Victoria's laugh was brittle. Margaret won't allow. I don't care what my mother allows. This is my house, my life. He squeezed Amelia's hand. And for the first time, they're both truly mine. After Victoria stormed out, the therapy room fell silent except for the soft hum of the equipment. Amelia's hand tingled where Oliver still held it. I'm sorry, he said finally, for what she said about you. She's not entirely wrong. Amelia's voice was steady despite her racing heart. I am paid to be here. Look at me. When she didn't move, his voice softened. Please. She came around to face him, forcing herself to meet his intense green gaze. Do you organize my medications by color because you're paid to? He asked. What? No, Do you cut the carrots exactly how I like them because it's in your job description? Oliver. Do you stay up late reading medical journals about spinal injuries because Margaret ordered you to? His hand caught hers again. Do you hold your breath every time I try to walk because it's your professional duty? Tears burned behind her eyes. Stop. When you touch me, his voice dropped lower. Does your heart race because you're being paid? You know it doesn't. The words escaped before she could stop them. His thumb brushed across her knuckles. Then stop hiding behind your position. Stop pretending this is just a job. It has to be. She pulled her hand away. Your mother is not in control anymore. His eyes held hers. I meant what I said to Victoria. For the first time in my life, I'm choosing my own path. And Amelia. He reached for her again, I choose. A throat cleared from the doorway. They turned to find Margaret Blackthorne herself standing there, elegant as ever in a pearl gray suit. I see Victoria was right to call me, she said, her voice deceptively calm. We need to talk, Oliver, privately. Amelia stepped back quickly, smoothing her skirt. I'll go prepare lunch. Actually, Miss Hartley, Margaret's use of her surname was pointed. I think it's best if you take the afternoon off. Oliver and I have much to discuss. The dismissal was clear. Amelia looked at Oliver, whose face had hardened into the mask she hadn't seen in weeks. It's fine, he said quietly. Go. But his eyes said something different, something that made her heart flutter despite her best intentions. She nodded and left, her steps measured until she was out of sight. Then she ran to the guest house, her composure finally cracking. Inside, she sank onto her bed, pressing her hands to her burning cheeks. What was she doing? She'd sworn after her last position that she'd never let herself be vulnerable again, never let her heart overrule her head. Her phone buzzed with a text from Oliver. Don't let her chase you away, please. Another buzz. I meant everything I said. And finally, the carrots weren't the only thing that made me want to get better. Amelia stared at the messages until they blurred through her tears. Outside, she heard cars pulling away. Victoria leaving, probably. But Margaret's Mercedes remained in the drive, a reminder of all the obstacles they faced. The sensible thing would be to pack her bags, to leave before her heart broke completely, before the fantasy of a love that crossed class lines shattered against reality. But Oliver's words echoed in her mind. For the first time, I'm choosing my own path. Could she be as brave? Could she fight for something real, something that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure? Her phone buzzed one last time. I need you, not as my caregiver, just you. Amelia closed her eyes, remembering every shared moment, every small touch, every look that said more than words. Then she opened her messages and typed, The carrots will be perfect for dinner. I'm not going anywhere. It wasn't a declaration of love. It wasn't a promise of forever, but it was a choice. Her choice. And for now, that was enough. She just hoped they were both strong enough for what came next. Amelia found the note slipped under her door the next morning. Margaret's elegant handwriting flowed across the heavy cream paper. Join me for tea in the conservatory, 10 a.m. It wasn't a request. The conservatory sat at the far end of the mansion, a cathedral of glass and wrought iron that Oliver's grandfather had imported piece by piece from England. Morning light streamed through the panels, creating patterns on the marble floor like scattered diamonds. Margaret waited at a small table, a silver tea service gleaming before her. Ah, Miss Hartley, prompt as always. Mrs. Blackthorne. Amelia smoothed her skirt as she sat, noting the absence of a second teacup. Not a social call, then. I've deposited a significant bonus in your account, Margaret said, stirring her tea, along with an excellent letter of recommendation. The Ashworths in Boston are looking for a new house manager. Their estate is quite impressive. Amelia's hands tightened in her lap. You're firing me. On the contrary, I'm offering you an opportunity. Margaret's gray eyes were sharp. A chance to leave with your reputation and your heart intact. I don't understand. Don't you? Margaret set her cup down with a delicate clink. My son is vulnerable right now, emotional. The accident has made him question everything, including his place in society. He might mistake gratitude for something deeper. You think that's what this is? Amelia fought to keep her voice steady. Gratitude? What else could it be? Margaret's smile was gentle but firm. Oliver has a legacy to uphold. The company needs a strong leader, someone who can command respect in boardrooms across Asia. He can't afford distractions. Is that what Victoria was? An attempt to remove the distraction? Victoria was a mistake. I see that now. Margaret sighed. But she at least understood our world. The responsibilities that come with the Blackthorn name. And I don't. You're an excellent housekeeper, Amelia. Truly. But Oliver needs to focus on his recovery, on reclaiming his position. The board is already nervous about his capabilities after the accident. If he were to become involved with a member of the household staff, the implications hung in the air like poison. Did you tell him this? Amelia asked quietly. During your talk yesterday, I reminded him of his duties, of the 1,000 employees who depend on strong leadership. Margaret's voice softened. He cares for you in his way, but caring isn't enough to build a life on. Surely you see that. Before Amelia could respond, movement caught her eye. Oliver stood in the conservatory doorway, his cane forgotten in his anger. How dare you? His voice shook with fury. How dare you try to manipulate her like this? Oliver, you shouldn't be walking without support. Both women rose, but he waved them off. I heard everything, Mother. Your attempts to buy her off. Your implications about my vulnerability. Your concerns about the company's image. He moved into the room, his steps careful but determined. Did you ever stop to consider what I want? Darling, you're not thinking clearly. I've never thought more clearly in my life. He reached Amelia's side, his hand finding hers. Do you know what the accident taught me? That everything I thought mattered, status, appearance, social standing, means nothing. You can lose it all in a moment. Margaret's composed facade cracked slightly. The company will be fine, better than fine. Oliver's grip tightened on Amelia's hand. Because for the first time I'm fighting for something real, something that makes me want to be better, not just look better. Oliver, Amelia whispered, but he wasn't finished. You want to know why the board should trust me, Mother? Because I finally trust myself. Because someone believed in me when I was broken, not for the family name or the company's sake, but for me. He turned to Amelia, his green eyes intense. Someone who cuts carrots perfectly because she knows it matters to me. Who reads medical journals late at night because she actually cares if I heal. Tears spilled down Amelia's cheeks. You knew about that? I know everything about you. His free hand rose to cup her face. How you organize things when you're nervous. How you bite your cheek when you're worried. How you hold your breath every time I take a step. Not because you're afraid I'll fall, but because you believe so. Fiercely that I can fly. Margaret's chair scraped back. This is inappropriate. No, Mother. What's inappropriate is trying to buy off the woman I love. The word hung in the air like a thunderclap. Amelia's heart stopped, then started again at double speed. Love? She whispered. Oliver's thumb brushed away her tears. Yes. Love. Real, messy, inconvenient, completely inappropriate love. The kind that doesn't care about stock prices or social standing or what the board of directors might think. Oliver, please. Margaret tried one last time. Think about what you're risking. I'm not risking anything. He never took his eyes off Amelia's face. I'm choosing everything. Every day, every step, every moment since you walked into my life with your perfectly cut carrots and your unflinching faith in me. I choose you, Amelia Grace Hartley, if you'll have me. The world seemed to hold its breath. In the silence, Amelia could hear the gentle splash of the conservatory fountain, the whisper of leaves in the morning breeze. Could feel the warmth of Oliver's hand in hers, see the love and fear mingled in his eyes. She thought of her carefully, ordered life of the walls she'd built after her last heartbreak, thought of Margaret's warnings and the world that waited to judge them. Then she thought of early mornings in therapy, of shared laughter over lunch, of the way Oliver looked at her like she was something precious instead of something purchased. Yes, she whispered, then louder. Yes. His smile was like sunrise. Before she could say more, he pulled her close and kissed her. Their first real kiss, tasting of tears and triumph and possibility. When they finally parted, Margaret was gone. The conservatory doors swung gently in the breeze. The empty teacup, a silent witness to worlds colliding and hearts choosing love over legacy. She'll come around, Oliver murmured against her hair. And if she doesn't? Then we'll build our own legacy. He pulled back to meet her eyes. One perfectly cut carrot at a time. Amelia laughed through her tears, straightening his collar out of habit. You shouldn't be standing this long without your cane. Worth it. But he let her help him to a chair, his hands keeping hold of hers once he was seated. Stay with me. The question held more than the moment, more than the morning. It held a future, uncertain, unconventional, but real. Always, she promised, and in the light of the conservatory, surrounded by growing things and new beginnings, Amelia finally let herself believe in something bigger than duty, stronger than fear. Love. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. sharp, and Oliver hadn't slept. Amelia watched him pace the length of his study, each step stronger than the last, but weighted with tension. The morning sun cast long shadows through the windows, highlighting the determined set of his jaw. You don't have to do this today, she said softly from the doorway. The doctor said 2 more weeks of therapy before. The board won't wait 2 weeks. He turned to face her, his green eyes intense. They've been patient, but after Mother's resignation, they're nervous. They need to see me. The real me. Margaret's resignation as board chairwoman had shocked the business world. No official reason was given, but the timing, 3 days after the conservatory confrontation, spoke volumes. She hadn't spoken to either of them since. At least use your cane for the meeting. Amelia moved to straighten his tie, a gesture that had become natural in the past week. Show them you're recovering, not trying to prove something. His hands caught hers, holding them against his chest. What if I am trying to prove something? Oliver, not to them. He pressed a kiss to her palm. To myself. To us. That I can be the man you believe in and the leader the company needs. The sound of car tires on gravel interrupted them. Through the window, they watched sleek vehicles arrive, disgorging men and women in expensive suits, all wearing expressions of carefully contained concern. Bradford has the car ready to take you to the office, Amelia said, stepping back. This was his moment, his world. She had no place in it. No. Oliver's voice was firm. The meeting's here, in my home. She blinked. But the office is 20 stories of carefully maintained image. He smiled slightly. I want them to see reality. My reality, including the woman who helped me find it. Before she could protest, the doorbell rang. Amelia smoothed her simple, black dress, not a uniform anymore, but still modest, still appropriate. I should stay. Oliver caught her hand again. Please, I need you here. The first board members entered the study cautiously, their eyes taking in everything. Oliver standing unaided, Amelia's presence, the subtle changes in the room that spoke of shared space and shared lives. Oliver. Charles Richardson, the lead director, stepped forward. At 70, he'd known Oliver since birth. You're looking, well, I'm looking real, Charles. Oliver gestured to the conference table that had been set up. Shall we begin? The meeting started formally enough. Quarterly reports were reviewed, projections discussed, concerns raised about market stability. But underneath it all, Amelia felt the current of unasked questions. Finally, Regina Chen, head of Asian operations, spoke up. About the Beijing expansion, proceeding as planned, Oliver said smoothly. I'll be there for the final negotiations next month. A murmur went through the room. Charles leaned forward. Oliver, while we appreciate your dedication, perhaps it would be better to delegate to someone who can walk without stumbling. Oliver's voice was calm but carried an edge. To someone who still fits your image of a CEO? That's not. It is. Oliver stood, bracing himself against the table. And it's time we addressed it. Yes, I was injured. Yes, I struggled. And yes, I changed. He moved around the table slowly, each step deliberate. But change isn't weakness. My accident taught me what real strength is, real leadership. Through your relationship with the help? The words came from Preston Walsh, the oldest board member. His eyes flicked dismissively to Amelia. The room went silent. Oliver's hands clenched, but before he could speak, Amelia stepped forward. Mr. Walsh, her voice was steady. In the past 4 months, I've watched Oliver relearn how to walk, how to trust his body, his instincts. I've seen him work through pain that would break most people, never missing a conference call, never letting this company suffer. She met the old man's gaze. If you think that's weakness, perhaps you should reconsider your definition of strength. Preston's face reddened, but Regina Chen was nodding slowly. The Asian numbers are stronger than ever, she said. Your leadership during recovery has been impressive. Because I finally understand what matters. Oliver reached for Amelia's hand. Not appearance. Not status. Results. Truth. The courage to be authentic in a world of corporate masks. The shareholders, Charles began, will see a CEO who faced adversity and emerged stronger. Oliver's voice filled the room. Who builds real relationships, not just business connections? Who understands that vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the foundation of true strength? He turned to face the board fully. I love this company. I love the work we do. But I also love this woman. If that's a problem for any of you, I'll accept your resignation now. The silence stretched. Then Regina Chen laughed. Well, I for one find it refreshing. Too long we've hidden our humanity behind boardroom doors. Perhaps it's time for a change. One by one, the other directors nodded. Even Preston Walsh gave a grudging shrug. Only Charles hesitated. Your mother made her choice. Oliver's voice softened. Now I've made mine. The rest of the meeting passed in a blur of signatures and strategy discussions. When the last board member left, Oliver sank into his chair, exhausted but triumphant. That was quite a speech, Amelia said, moving to massage his shoulders. About vulnerability and strength. He caught her hand, pressing it to his cheek. I meant every word. I know. She leaned down to kiss him softly. That's why they believed you. We're not done fighting, he warned. Mother, society, people's expectations. I know that too. She smiled. But you taught me something about fighting for what matters. Did I? Something about real, messy, inconvenient love being worth it. His laugh was warm against her palm. Speaking of inconvenient, I had Richardson's face checked when you called out Walsh. I thought he was going to swallow his tie. Poor man. Such an unseemly display of emotion in a board meeting. Shocking. Oliver pulled her into his lap, ignoring her squeak of surprise. Almost as shocking as this. The kiss was long, sweet, full of promise. When they finally parted, Amelia rested her forehead against his. The Beijing trip, she said softly. Are you sure? About going? Yes. His eyes sparkled. About going alone? Absolutely not. I need someone to ensure my carrots are cut properly in China. Oliver, I'm serious. He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. Come, with me. Not as my caregiver or my housekeeper, as my partner, my future. Amelia's heart soared. Your mother will have a fit. Probably. But maybe eventually she'll see what I see. He traced her cheek. Someone who makes me better, makes me real. Real is good, she whispered. Real is everything. Outside, autumn was painting Newport, in shades of gold and crimson, the same colors that had welcomed Victoria's unwanted return. But now they seemed to speak of transformation instead of endings, of love that dared to be real in a world of carefully maintained appearances. Amelia settled closer in Oliver's arms, feeling his heart beat strong and steady against her cheek. They had more battles ahead, more storms to weather, but here, in this moment, they were simply real. And real, they were discovering, was the greatest victory of all. The Beijing winter wrapped the city in a pearly haze, softening the edges, of skyscrapers against the dawn sky. Amelia stood at the floor-to-ceiling windows of their hotel suite, watching the city wake. Behind her, she heard Oliver's steady breathing, punctuated by the soft tap of his cane as he moved around the room. "Nervous?" she asked without turning. "About the contract signing?" "No." He came to stand behind her, wrapping his free arm around her waist. "About dinner with Mother tonight?" Terrified. Margaret's message had arrived yesterday. "I'm in Beijing on foundation business. Dinner at Imperial Court, 7 p.m. No mention of the 3 months of silence that preceded it. No acknowledgement of the changes that had transformed their lives. "We don't have to go," Amelia said softly, leaning back against him. "Yes, we do." His lips brushed her temple. "It's time." The day passed in a whirlwind of meetings and signatures. Amelia watched from the periphery as Oliver commanded the room, his natural authority enhanced rather than diminished by the subtle support of his cane. When he spoke of vision and growth, of bridging cultures and building trust, people listened. "You must be very proud," Regina Chen murmured to her during a break. "He's not just back to his old self, he's better." "He's real," Amelia replied simply. As evening approached, they returned to the hotel to change. Amelia chose a deep blue dress that Oliver had bought her in Hong Kong, elegant but unmistakably her own style. No more uniforms, no more hiding. "Beautiful," Oliver said when she emerged from the bathroom. He'd exchanged his business suit for a charcoal dinner jacket that made his eyes look more green than ever. "Your tie is crooked." She moved to fix it automatically. He caught her hands, pressing them to his chest. "I love when you do that." "Fix your tie?" "Care about the details. About me." His thumb brushed over her engagement ring, a simple sapphire that matched her eyes, chosen together in Kyoto last week. "Ready?" The Imperial Court restaurant occupied the top floor of one of Beijing's most exclusive hotels. Margaret was already there when they arrived, impeccable in pale gray silk, her face unreadable as they approached. "Mother." Oliver's voice was carefully neutral. "You're walking well," she said after a moment. "The therapy in Japan was successful." "Very." He held Amelia's chair before taking his own seat. "Though I doubt you flew to Beijing to discuss my physical therapy." Margaret's fingers traced the stem of her water glass. "No, I came because it was time." She looked at Amelia directly for the first time. "The foundation is funding a new project, supporting women entrepreneurs from non-traditional backgrounds in developing their own businesses." Amelia's breath caught. Under the table, Oliver squeezed her hand. "Your organizational skills," Margaret continued, "your eye for detail, your ability to manage complex households efficiently. These are valuable skills in the luxury concierge industry. The foundation's first grant could help you establish your own company." The offer hung in the air. 3 months ago, it would have felt like a bribe, another attempt to separate them. Now, "That's very generous," Amelia said carefully. "But I hope you understand that any business I build will be alongside Oliver, not away from him." "I know." Margaret's composure cracked slightly. "I've watched, from a distance, the board meetings, the Asia expansion, the way you support each other without compromising who you are. Did you expect something different?" Oliver's voice was soft but intent. "I expected what I knew." Margaret's hands trembled slightly as she reached for her bag. Society events where people whispered behind their hands, board members resigning in protest, the company's reputation suffering. None of that happened. "No." She withdrew an envelope. "Instead, I saw my son become the leader I always knew he could be. The man I was too controlling to let him become on his own." She slid the envelope across the table. Inside was a formal invitation to a charity gala addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Oliver Blackthorne. "The wedding isn't for 2 months," Amelia protested. Consider it practice. Margaret's smile was small but real. If you're willing to let me help plan it. Oliver's hand tightened on Amelia's. Mother, I was wrong. The words seemed to cost her, but she pressed on. Wrong about so many things, but mostly wrong about what makes a person worthy of the Blackthorn name. She met Amelia's eyes. Some people are born to it. Others earn it through their strength of character. Tears pricked Amelia's eyes. I'm not taking the name to live up to it. I'm taking it because I love him. I know. Margaret reached across the table, touching Amelia's hand briefly. That's why you deserve it. The rest of dinner passed in a haze of cautious conversation and careful steps toward reconciliation. When they finally returned to their hotel, the city lights sparkled like stars below them. Well, Oliver said, drawing Amelia close. That was unexpected, hopeful. He kissed her softly. Like everything since you came into my life. Amelia smiled against his lips. Even the carrots? Especially the carrots. His laugh rumbled through his chest. Though I have to say, the ones at dinner weren't cut quite right. Of course they weren't. She pulled back to look at him properly. No one else knows exactly how you like them. His expression softened. No one else knows exactly how I like anything. No one else sees me the way you do. And how do I see you? As I am. He traced her cheek. Not the CEO, not the invalid, not the Blackthorn heir, just me. Just you is everything I want. She leaned into his touch. Though I have to admit, your mother's business proposal is intriguing. Luxury concierge services? His eyes sparkled. Planning high-end events? Organizing exclusive households? Making sure all the carrots in Newport are cut to exact specifications? Stop teasing. But she was smiling. It could work, especially with the foundation support. It will work. He led her to the window. Because you'll make it work, and I'll be there watching you build something amazing. Below them, Beijing hummed with life and possibility. Amelia thought of the long road that had brought them here, from a desperate accident to reluctant care to love that defied expectations. Every step, every struggle, every small victory had led to this moment. What are you thinking? Oliver murmured against her hair. That sometimes the hardest falls lead to the highest flights. She turned in his arms. That sometimes what looks like an ending is really a beginning. Deep thoughts for midnight in Beijing. I learned from the best. She reached up to straighten his tie one last time. A very wise man once told me that real is everything. Sounds like a smart guy. His smile was tender. Did he happen to mention that he loves you? Once or twice. She kissed him softly. But I never get tired of hearing it. I love you, Amelia Grace Hartley. His forehead rested against hers. Soon to be Blackthorn, if you still want it. I want you, she whispered. The name is just a bonus. Outside, the Beijing dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of pearl and promise. Inside, two people who had found each other against all odds held on to their own private miracle. The miracle of falling, of healing, of choosing love over legacy, and truth over appearance. Real love, messy love, love that cut carrots perfectly, and straightened ties and believed in second chances. Love that was simply and completely everything. 1 year later, the Newport Mansion's kitchen gleamed in the late afternoon sun, filled with the warm aroma of herbs and roasting vegetables. Amelia moved through the space with practiced grace, though she now wore a tailored business suit instead of her former uniform. The Singapore client wants their entire staff trained in your organizational system, Oliver announced, entering the kitchen with barely a trace of his former limp. He paused to kiss her cheek before stealing a carrot from her cutting board. That's the third request this month. Stop pilfering my ingredients. But she was smiling as she shooed him away. And yes, I know about Singapore. Regina already called to congratulate me. Hartley and Blackthorn Luxury Services is becoming quite the empire. He leaned against the counter watching her work. Though I notice you still insist on doing the cooking yourself when Mother visits. Old habits. Amelia checked the roast. Besides, no one else gets the carrots right. The sound of a car on the gravel drive filtered through the open window. Moments later, Margaret's voice carried from the foyer, accompanied by the click of her heels. "In the kitchen," Oliver called out. Margaret appeared in the doorway, elegant as ever, though her face had softened over the past year. "Something. Smells wonderful." She hugged Oliver, then Amelia. "Please tell me those are your roasted vegetables. The ones at the club just aren't the same." "Special recipe." Amelia exchanged a knowing look with Oliver. "How was the foundation meeting?" "Productive. We've approved funding for 5 more women entrepreneurs." Margaret settled at the kitchen island. "Including that lovely former housekeeper from Boston. You recommended." "Christina has amazing potential," Amelia said, adding the finishing touches to the table setting. "Her idea for a sustainable cleaning service targeting luxury properties is brilliant." "Speaking of brilliant ideas," Oliver's voice held a hint of mischief. "Should we tell her?" Margaret looked between them. "Tell me what?" Amelia nodded, and Oliver continued. "We're expanding the company, opening an academy to train household staff in Amelia's methods, professional development, certification programs, and a scholarship fund," Amelia added quietly, "for people who want to move from service positions into management roles, to help them build their own dreams." Understanding dawned on Margaret's face. "Like you did." "With the right support." Amelia's hand found Oliver's. "And the right person believing in you." "The board approved it unanimously," Oliver said. "They want to name it after both of us, the Blackthorn Hartley Academy for Professional Excellence." "Using both names?" Margaret's eyebrows rose. "That's unconventional." "So are we." Amelia began serving the meal. "It feels right honoring both parts of who we are, where we came from and where we're going." Margaret was quiet for a moment, watching them move in perfect sync around the kitchen. Oliver setting out drinks while Amelia plated the food, their movements a well-practiced dance. "I was so wrong," she said finally. "About everything." "That mattered." "Not everything," Oliver smiled. "You sent her to me, remember? Best decision you ever made." "Second best," Amelia corrected. "The best was learning to accept what we built together." They settled around the table, the conversation flowing easily now where once there had been tension. As Margaret praised the perfectly roasted vegetables, Amelia caught Oliver watching her with that same look of wonder he'd worn since their first kiss in the conservatory. Later, after Margaret had gone and the kitchen was clean, they stood at the window watching the sunset paint the garden in shades of gold. Oliver's arms wrapped around her from behind, his chin resting on her head. "Happy?" he murmured. Amelia turned in his embrace. "Perfect." "Like your carrots?" "Better." She reached up to straighten his tie, a gesture that had become their private symbol of everything unspoken between them. Real perfect, messy perfect, our kind of perfect. His kiss tasted of possibility and promise, of endings that became beginnings, of love that grew stronger with each perfectly measured step forward. Together. At one point in the story, Oliver says, "You cured me before my legs did. It was you who made me want to try." This makes us think. Have you ever had someone who saw your strength when you couldn't see it yourself? Someone who believed in you when everyone, including you, had given up? How did that change your life? Your participation in the channel is very important. Please leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your IQ, feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.